All right, everybody, welcome back to another video. Today's day 64, I think, ish. And full transparency, I totally skipped a video yesterday. Hung out, played Minecraft, built some blocks, built Legos, jumped on the trampoline with my daughter, and we just chilled out. So I totally did not do a video yesterday. But we're back on the grind, back on, it's Monday, and I love Mondays, right? I used to hate them. But I like diving back into work, doing all the stuff, showing up in my business. So today I want to talk a little bit about compounding wins, turning small wins into big wins, momentum, because it's a very big thing. And I know my previous videos, I've been kind of on a tangent around, things not to do in business, etc., expectations, and all these other things, right? Not trying to be a negative Ned in any of my content, mind you. It's just it sucks watching people staying stuck. Now, today I want to talk a little bit about a different prong to that, right? Like, how do we actually start turning our little wins into big things? How do we, go from 1,000 followers and turn that into, sales and all these other things that most of us want in business? And I've already posted about this a couple times on my social media today, but a big thing to remember is like doubling down on the stuff you were doing. Like this is a big piece a lot of people miss, and I've done countless times myself. We start having success in something, doing something in business. It starts working for us, and then we go add a new layer. We go add a new piece. We go add something else to the business in hopes of making it better. But what usually actually ends up happening is if we look at our energy and our time and what we're doing in business as like a pie, right? You have like a circle. So let's say we're doing this one thing in business and it's working, and we want to like take that from $1,000 a month to $10,000 a month. More often than not, it's usually just more of the stuff that was already generating $1,000 a month versus in going and adding something new. Because what actually ends up happening is if you have 50% of your energy going to the thing that was working and then 50% of your energy going to the new thing, the thing that was working is going to start getting worse and worse and worse because your energy is pulled somewhere else. So, something to think about: if you've done anything in business, you've accomplished any results in business, the key to actually taking your results from where they are right now, or your views, your follower count, or etc., is to do more of the stuff that you're already doing. And I'm not saying that we do this in with bad intentions, right? I've done this a lot of times with the best intentions, right? To grow the business, to grow my thing, to do this and enhance what I'm actually doing. But what actually ends up happening is it starts to get worse because we're going and learning this new thing, and then all of a sudden all the stuff that was working stops working because naturally we're not putting as much energy into it. And for those of you guys who are trying to build businesses while working full-time jobs, this is a very important one, right? Like if you only have 2 hours, 3 hours, a night or whatever when you get off work, it's going to be imperative that you spend your time, your limited time that you do have, on the things that are going to move the needle as much as possible and actually put you in a position to actually start having successes, right? Not getting stuck in a learning phase of something new or learning a new process or a model or anything like that. Like it's just something to think about. Now that my 4-minute ramble is over, we'll actually dive into the doc I have for you guys today and talk about compounding small wins into big wins. Now, I think one of the coolest parts about online business that really gets overlooked is the fact that we can simply compound what we're doing in business to create more business. Like we had just under a $9,000 day so far. $8,900 hit our Stripe account before 11 o'clock this morning, and I sure as hell created content around that. I'm mentioning it in this piece of content, right? So that's a good example of like utilizing things that happen in business to fuel your content in your business. Now, the problem that most people run into with this is they don't actually end up getting consistent enough or do enough things in business that they actually have anything to go talk about. Those are the easiest lenses to create content from because they're simply happening, right? So, compounding your small wins into big ones. Your content and brand should show a few things and consistently showcase them as a whole. This is the most important part. Consistently. Okay? None of this game actually works if you can't build a consistent habit. And I know that sounds like I'm being a dick, but it's just the reality of it, right? Like you're posting one piece of content every other week, like people aren't seeing you enough to even know what you are doing, or like building attention around yourself. It doesn't end up happening if we're not consistent. And these are the three things. It has to be personal. This is a big part. Like everything that we do in this game, it needs to become personalized to you, right? It's not, if you want to get results like everybody else, then you can play the same game as everybody else. And the harsh reality of online business is the majority of people don't get results. And it's because they don't embed enough personality. They don't embed themselves, their stories, their examples, their actual them. It's just like copy and paste this content, and then you're gonna get buried in another, like a sea of people doing the exact same content as you. It has to be personal, right? This is what we tell all of our students in the beginning too. Like, hey, if you've never done anything online, then you probably need to spend like the next 3 or 4 weeks simply getting consistent with content creation, and it all has to just be around you. Like, don't even worry about optimizing to sell a product right now if you've never created content before. We need to build those relationships. We need to plant seeds. We need to, connect with people via content creation. Folks consuming must believe it's possible, not just from you, but for them. Like, those are the two things that people are going to ask themselves. Has this worked for XYZ, and can it work for me? Right? And since people are selfish, it must be profitable. Like that, and that's not saying that in a bad way. Like, everybody in some form or some fashion is going to make decisions based on their own things, their own agendas, their own personal things, stuff like that. But this is a big part of it, right? We need to make it about them, right? Your content needs to be, which I know sounds like a contradiction, right? I said make your content personal, but make it about them. What I'm really meaning by that is, like, with anything you're doing in business, we need to convey a crystal clear message around what somebody's going to get out of it from joining your group, from talking with you, from buying your offer. Because if we don't make it about what they are actually going to accomplish, they're not going to move. They're not going to do anything, because that's the literal reason why they are going to do anything, is if they're clear on what they're going to get out of it. It's not about you, which I know sounds backwards because I just said create content about yourself, but then it's not about you, right? But this is primarily when it comes to offers, etc., generating leads, doing anything like that. It has to be about what the person, the consumer, is going to accomplish, achieve, create, etc. from your things. Otherwise, they're not going to move, right? Like, hey, join my group. Like, why? Like, why should that person just join your community? Okay, hey, I have a 5-day training that's going to help you do XYZ. Okay, but why should I go watch that training? What am I going to get out of it? That's the question we need to answer as many times as possible, realistically. So back to the 3 things above. Your audience needs to know this and believe this before a commitment will ever be made or considered. This is a big part of it. People are trying to sell offers way too quickly to their audience. They're trying to sell products way too fast. Like, someone comments on their post, they're sending them a checkout to an affiliate link or a digital product. Like they just watched you for 60 seconds. They're not ready to buy anything from you. You have to kind of slow down. But the other prong to that is, if you're like me, when I was in the DMs of people, I would just talk and build relationships, and I would never make offers. So there's 2 different sides to it. But you have to slow down in the sales process. Like, people are not going to buy from you, which then kind of feeds back to the consistency piece. If you're not consistent, you're not even going to build enough relationship fast enough to create sales opportunities, right? So how we can do this is rather simple. Telling your stories is more powerful than most marketers know. Your own stories inside of your main story, paired with stories around you. So as an example, like, hey, this is how I grew my following by 1,000 people. This is what I'm doing in my business. Say you get any kind of result. Let's, like, as an example, your first 20 leads. Okay, it doesn't have to be a monetary thing that you generated in business. How did you get 20 leads? What did you have to do? What type of steps you took? Like, this is the power of, as I mentioned in the beginning of this video too, is like doing something in business and turning around and utilizing that to fuel what you're doing in content. You guys will see me do this all of the time. Yesterday's video was around an 8-week cash flow class we're kicking off, a training we're planning to run. I'm simply using things that are happening in my life, business, as fuel for my content. This is how you generate infinite content ideas, by simply running a business, living your life, and being a human being. So on the topic of generating leads, right? How was it different? Make it personal. Was it different from how most generate leads? How so? Do you have to be a brain surgeon to attain the results the way you did? If no, explain why. Make it easy for people to realize they can do it too. Like, this is a good example of like what you can flow your actual content for. Show them it's possible. Why would they want to get 20 leads, right? What would 20 leads do for them, their business? What kind of leads were they? High quality folks, easy to talk to, already warmed up to you, buyers. Did any of those 20 leads convert into sales or even relationships for future endeavors? Did they follow a specific CTA? Did they vibe with your style? Like, the biggest thing that hangs people up is being specific in their content and what they help people do, their stories, their examples, their processes, because the more specific we can get, the easier it is to actually make sales or resonate with people. And you can do this as many times or as many, different ways and angles as you possibly want, right? So the more you do this, the more folks will be attracted to you while naturally wanting to have what you have, right? All of us have a slew of results that other folks want, yet we sleep on them because they don't seem like a big deal. This is a big thing that a lot of people in the beginning completely overlook. Like, hey, I can't talk about XYZ because I haven't made $100,000. I don't have a 7-figure business. Like, oh, you guys have generated this much results and I haven't done any of that. Like, the things that you need to talk about in your content is the things that you're actually doing. Give people good information about something that you just did. And the thing to remember is, to somebody who isn't doing what you're doing, like, all of us have habits in our business that become normal. Creating content, talking to people, chatting with people, all these different things that we do. To somebody who's never done that, that's not a normal thing. You could show somebody how you grew your group by 10 people, how you created your first TikTok, how you created your first Facebook post. These are all very compelling angles that you can turn around and create content on, and then start to compound momentum. Because, but we totally tend to overlook the tiny little micro things that we end up building a habit or a routine of doing because they become normal to us. But to people that aren't doing them, they're not normal. The more that we can actually do this in our content, people will start to understand, know your plan. Now, the problem with a lot of people is they change the plan so often that their audience doesn't ever even get to know what they actually do. Right? We've been talking about group growth and monetization in some form or some fashion for years. And I'm not saying you guys have to do that for years, but this is the problem. People have a different plan every other week, and then they're like, why doesn't anybody like understand what I do, or why is my audience not buying? It's like, because your audience is extremely confused because you're confused, right? Like, once you have your plan in place, like, don't deviate from the plan. Okay, if you have a roadmap to get to where you want to go, follow it until you get there. Like, stop changing the path. But never pitch your offer or product until folks are pre-sold on the plan. As I mentioned earlier, people are trying to sell their products way too fast, way too quickly, right? Running their business like they have $1 million brand and trying to sell people products without ever talking to them or whatever as fast as possible because they should buy, right? But people, like, they don't know that. Your audience doesn't know that unless you actually convey that as many times in as many different ways you can. Okay, so this is kind of a part of pre-selling on parts of you and your brand. But a good thing to look at is like, why is your way different? Okay, what's the old way or current way of doing things? As an example, getting leads, adding friends from random groups. Like, we used to do this, DMing folk, cold DM, clickbaity bullshit, bold income claims, false promises. Whatever it might be, how's yours different? Now, even if it isn't a different tactic per se, it can be different because it's you. Something that we always tend to overlook too. Like, if I'm giving you a framework to grow and monetize your group, that doesn't mean there isn't other people that aren't gonna teach you how to grow and monetize a group. The thing that ends up setting you apart is the relationship that gets built through the content that gets created. because eventually people will want to come to me instead of the other person that has the same process because of the connection that's established, the relationship that was built. What are the current issues that people are facing in their business or life that your plan will solve? Okay. Like, where are they now with the old way, how things look versus where they could be with your new way, or how different they'd be after. This is powerful shit when deployed over time. It can be beneficial rather quickly as well. All depends on how detailed you can describe where they are, as well as how relatable your stories are that paint the picture for them. And that's all I got for you guys today. Write a little bit on compounding some wins, pre-selling through content, 3Ps. The biggest thing people need to get sold on is you as a human being, person, brand owner, parent, whatever, whoever you are, it doesn't matter. Because without that relationship getting established, you don't actually make sales. Secondly is your unique mechanism, your offer, your product, your process, etc., your plan, and then also creating a divide in why your plan is different from something else, right? And don't be afraid to start leaning into things that you have accomplished in business, whether they're small, whether they're big, doesn't really matter. And then starting to turn around and create content about those, because that's how you start generating interest or formulating processes, or creating. You can end up packaging these up into your own digital products, right? This is how we ended up creating Group Juice, right? We were doing short form video content to grow groups and removing sales calls, removing cold DMs, removing adding friends. And that was a very common problem in the market, still is to this day. And we're like, hey, we have a process that we've been using for the last 6 months. Woke up to 1,000 members requesting to join my group. So we're going to go ahead and turn around and teach people how to do this. But it didn't start with having this digital product that was this masterpiece and all this different things. It was like we started doing some stuff in business, started seeing how it worked, and then we turned around and started talking about the processes we were just using that started working for us, and then ended up packaging those into an actual process and a program that has helped our students do millions of dollars in sales online. But it all kind of stems back from getting consistent, doing things in business, and then turning around and talking about the things you just did in business. And that's all I got. I'll see you guys tomorrow.